Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and today I have another exciting guest with us. I have Miss Coach Abbey Nelson back on the podcast. So Abbey has actually been on the podcast once before when she first started. Actually, she joined our team here at VGFN as a coach, and I'm really excited to have her back on because now you've been a coach with us for, that's been at least a year and a half, right? Since we first had that podcast.
Yeah.
And I know you and I both have evolved and changed a lot since then. We've both been on a little bit of our own journeys. And so today I wanted to take some time for Abbey and I to kind of just come together, have a little girls chat, and talk a little bit about our own hormone healing journeys, what that's been like, and really kind of pull back the curtain for our clients, for our listeners, for different women out there who maybe are looking at potentially starting a hormone healing journey. Maybe they are in a hormone healing journey. They want to know a little bit more about what to expect and also what it looks like to get to the other side of that. So welcome back to the show, Abbey.
Thank you. I'm definitely not as nervous this time, so that's good.
Always, the first time is always the nerve-wracking one, but now you're a pro.
It is. Exactly. Yeah. Getting there.
Yeah. Well, so I when we were talking about doing a podcast on this, what's funny is I was actually just recently looking back at a picture of myself from, I believe it was 2019. And first I pulled up this picture and I was like, damn, I'm shredded. And what's funny is, realistically, I'm like, that was honestly taken at the time when I was probably at my leanest. I had a lot of muscle definition. I was basically shredded. I was very lean. But what a lot of people wouldn't realize by looking at that picture, and what it's easy for me to even forget just looking at that picture, but like nowadays I see it very clearly when I look at that, is at that point in time, I had no period. I had no social life. I had no hobbies. I had a going nowhere job. This was before I had actually really started coaching. And I definitely had some mental health problems going on. I definitely did not, overall, I was not very happy with my life. But you know what? There I was shredded lean. And at the time, I thought that was, probably worth it because that was like the body I had dreamed of having back when before that was 40 pounds overweight, really unconfident, inactive, just felt really terrible about myself. So for that point in time, like I had swung to the other end of the spectrum, but the reality is that came with a cost. It came with the cost of my health. And I know, Abbey, you had a really substantial transformation as well. And I know for you that ultimately eventually led to some issues as well. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, share a little bit more on your journey?
Yeah. I mean, even what you just shared, I can resonate with so much because now going through my hormone journey, looking back on those pictures of when I was super lean and super shredded, like at that time I was in the mindset of, oh, I'm lean, I'm shredded. I finally got to my goal, right? Because I used to weigh 225 pounds and I got down to 150. And it was like, that was always my goal number. And I was like, I'm finally there. And what people didn't see is how much I was just like suffering on the inside, right? I had so much outside stress. I was working so many hours and I was working out in the gym at 11 or 12 o'clock at night because I had that like hustle mentality. Because when else am I going to work out? I'm too busy working. So midnight's the only time I can go. And yeah, it wrecked my hormones. It wrecked me. In and out of the hospital with blood sugar crashes that were essentially debilitating. I couldn't drive anymore. It got really bad. So.
Yeah, I know you and I could probably dive really deep into a little bit more about that. And I think it's probably good for us to dive into a little bit more. But I also want to just kind of, before we dive even further into this, I want to preface by saying that like getting to that leaner place, even just like losing weight in general, there's nothing inherently bad about that. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. And there are many women who can walk around very naturally lean, who can maintain a low body fat percentage. There are those women who can have visible abs, who, can look very, very lean. But those women are not common. They're more the exception than the rule. And for many of us women, but just especially just women in general, many of us, we do require a certain amount of body fat to be able to function because our hormones need body fat. And without enough body fat, it does put our health on the line. Right now research points to minimum 20%, or I think it's minimum 22% body fat is really what research is pointing to for having a healthy, normal menstrual cycle. And that's because body fat itself, is the building block of hormones. So I wanted to add that kind of additional information here for maybe some women out there who are like, hold on, wait a second here. Like, why is this whole, like, they're talking about losing weight? Why is that idea of losing weight bad? Losing weight isn't bad. It was more so the things that we were doing to push our bodies into a state of leanness that was not sustainable and not just ultimately health promoting for our bodies, for Abby and I, led us to develop issues. It developed different types of hormone imbalances and different types of just health problems. Like Abby was saying, her blood sugar was dropping, and that's where it can just come with a cost. So I know both of us have spent the last year plus really diving into our hormone health. And with that came a process of needing to put back on body fat and even, maybe overshoot the level of body fat that we feel most comfortable at, which in and of itself did require us to do a lot of mindset work and really just change our perspective on what it really means to feel healthy in our bodies. So I'm hoping that we can kind of share a little bit about that, share a little bit about our journey, and provide some insight for those who maybe are realizing that they might need to put on a little bit body fat to get to that state of health, and they're scared to do so, which is totally normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, last year for myself, kind of painting the backstory, when I started my hormone healing journey, I was at a point where I had already put on about 10 pounds. So when I think back to like my leanest, it was probably actually like 15 pounds. But when I was like more so at this weight that I wanted to maintain at, that I really felt more comfortable at, I had slowly started to put on a little bit of body fat. Like, it was just so subtle. I didn't even notice it. It wasn't like this overnight thing, but it was just like over the course of time, I suddenly was feeling like, gosh, my clothes are fitting a little bit tighter here. And I'm noticing a little bit of different roles, different things in photos that I'm not normally seeing. And that's when I realized that I was actually putting on body fat because of a lot of these different things that were going on with my body. I was pushing off focusing on my own health. I was pushing off focusing on my own hormones. And so the weight gain was continuing to come in. So then when I actually shifted to let me focus on my health, ironically, the thing that also needed to happen was still allowing body fat to come on, but coming on from a healthy place. So by feeding up, by really fueling my body, getting my body the nutrients that it needed to support hormone production, to support just really all the different processes going on with my body, that did require me to add some extra body fat. And then, of course, thinking back on all the things I was doing that essentially wrecked my hormones, over exercising, under eating, that in and of itself was priming my body to put on body fat. Even, hormone issues aside, just going through that period of really over exercising, under eating, my metabolism was at a point where I was going to be putting on body fat regardless once I let go of the overeating and under exercising. So, I mean, ultimately, I ended up in a place where I think at my heaviest during my hormone healing journey, I was about 20 pounds up from where I really wanted to be. And that felt really uncomfortable. Over the last year, there was points in time, we got engaged, married, we went to Europe. We did a lot of like really big, monumental, like life things during this time. And I was at a weight that was a little bit heavier than I wanted to be at. And it was uncomfortable, but I do feel like I was able to, everything happens for a reason. I think I learned so much through that process. And now I think I'm a better coach for it. And I really want to be able to share these types of things with women. Abby, what about you? Tell us a little bit about like what that process looked like for your hormone healing journey and how your body changed.
That was really hard. It was really hard on me mentally. I think more so because a lot of my hormone issues stemmed from stress. Like I would say like 95% of it was from stress, whether it was from, things in my life that were going on with my family or with work or just, being a single mom and just completely overworking myself in every aspect. And also then adding on the health and fitness aspect of it as well. And so one of my first steps that I had to make in my hormone like healing protocols when I finally started was quitting my second job. And that was like so hard for me because I've always prided myself on being like a hard worker and just like the grind and, you know, all of that. So for me to slow down and like take naps and do yoga and just accept that I needed to slow down, and it was like okay to slow down, because I always equated that to laziness when really it was just learning how to honor my body and what my body needed at that time. Right? Because I just ran it into the ground, literally ran my body into the ground. And so I think I gained probably about 30 pounds. I think I got up to about 180. And that was really tough for me. And I think it was really tough because I had such a great weight loss journey, and I just felt like it was never going to end. I felt like I was never going to stop gaining weight. Like, I'm like, great, I'm just going back to where I started. All this work that I put in was for nothing. And then also being in that health and fitness space, right? People look up to you. You feel like you have to look a certain way. But then I took a step back, and obviously a majority of the women that we help are dealing with these struggles. And so what better way to like show them that they can be successful at it than leading by example through this. And so it was probably one of like the best things that ever happened to me, to be quite honest. Like, going through that pain really sucked, right? Like
Yeah.
being that sick and being that tired and not being able to wake up in the morning. Like, I remember like just hitting the snooze button, God, like 20, 30, 40 times, because I literally could not get out of bed anymore. And now I wake up at like 5 or 6 in the morning without an alarm. And I have just such a more relaxed life that still incorporates health and fitness, but it doesn't have to be my entire life anymore.
Yep.
Which
Man,
is really cool.
mic drop right there. Oh, but it's really a good point, because I know, like, for those who don't know, Abbey is she's a go-getter. She's a type 3 Enneagram, like high achiever, like she wants to go, go, go. And I know that was really, really hard for you to take that step back and recognize that you had to focus on your health in order to continue to allow yourself to go after your goals and achieve the things you wanted to achieve. And, same thing for me. Like, I was going through this during this period of time where our business was fast growing, and I wanted to be just the incredible CEO who could do it all and doesn't ever need to take a break and doesn't need to stop. But my body was the one that was like, no, we do need to take a break. We do need to stop. And I really just had to learn how to become comfortable again in my body that was essentially the heaviest I had been since I had previously lost weight. I didn't have quite as big of a transformation as you had, Abby, where you had originally lost that 75 pounds. So I could see for you even scarier of thinking like, oh my gosh, it's going to keep going up and up and up all the way back up to my heaviest, where I really was getting fairly close to my heaviest. I was really only 10 pounds or so away from what my heaviest weight was. And so for me, like, I really did feel like, man, I've kind of gone backwards here, but I had to take that step back and recognize that even though the scale number is saying the same number that I had previously been at this different stage in my life, I am an entirely different person now than I was when I was at this same number previously. Now I am here essentially on purpose. I'm here from a healthy state. Here I have much more muscle mass. I have better habits. I have a life that I'm proud of. I have, hobbies. I have an incredible job that I just love. Like, I had so much more to be grateful for. Whereas that first time around when I was at my heaviest, it was from a place of like, I don't know what to do. I don't love myself. I don't love my habits. And I felt worse that first time around. But I do think there's almost some almost like little t trauma there as well, of like when you went through some different phases in your life at a heavier weight and you just really didn't love yourself at that place. Even though I've done a lot of the work to learn to love myself, seeing those numbers again and seeing myself needing to fit back into bigger clothes again, it did bring back up these questions of like, how deep does my self-love really actually go here? So it required a lot of mindset work during that time. Really just questioning, like, why is my self-esteem tied to how my body looks? Like, where is that thought really coming from? It's like something I'd shared with our clients at our client retreat recently, is like, lovability. It's this really kind of interesting thing when you think about it, because when it comes to ourselves and our own bodies, we're like, oh, I have to earn this love. I have to be this certain shape or size. I have to do these certain things, and then I will love myself. But you don't look at a puppy or a child that comes into your life and be like, you need to do these things to earn my love. You need to look this certain way to earn my love. Like, you're like, no, I love them because they are lovable. And like, why can't we do that to ourselves? And that was a big part of the process for me, was learning to love myself, but also, even in days where it didn't feel like love, learning to accept myself and just challenging the thoughts that were more negative and that were more hurtful towards myself, because those kinds of hurtful thoughts weren't serving me. They weren't helping me. I'm not going to take any kind of positive action from having those thoughts. Like, people think they need to be, shamed into going to work out. They need to be yelled at to wake up in the morning. It's like, no, it doesn't actually work. Nobody actually gets anywhere from doing that. But if we have thoughts towards ourselves that are at minimum neutral, but, ideally more of like loving thoughts towards ourselves, then we take actions from a place of love. And those actions are going to be actions that serve us, that make us feel better, that are health promoting, and are going to take us to where we want to go.
Yeah.
I think I could go way down a rabbit hole on that one.
Yeah.
I think for
But
myself,
no,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as I was going through gaining that weight, kind of what got me through that was telling myself, like, some of those positive thoughts of just saying, like, okay, like, this is my body right now, and this is what it needs to go through in order to heal. And like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, we can deal with the other stuff later, but like, if you don't heal your hormones, that other stuff will never come.
Yeah, 100%, because
You
it is the same body. Like,
Yeah.
reminding ourselves that, like, this is still the same body that has been through all these different things and has done a lot of work to become healthy. And to a certain extent, maybe we've done some things that we overdid it to where those things were no longer healthy, and now we need to do different things that are healing. But it's still the same body. It's still the same hardworking person. It's just hard work looks differently now. Hard work might look like resting when we want to go and push. Hard work might look like, actually giving ourselves grace when that might feel like laziness at times. But I know for myself, and I know this is basically what you were saying before, Abby, too. It's like I felt like I just owed it to myself and, my team, you guys, the coaches, everyone, our clients, our podcast listeners, to anyone who was watching me during this time. I owed it to them to continue to show up and show up for myself and appreciate myself despite feeling uncomfortable, and set the example that discomfort isn't disabling. Like, yes, I was uncomfortable in my body, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to hate myself and hate my life and hate my body. I can still accomplish a lot while feeling uncomfortable. And I want my future kids to be able to see that, and to be able to see that example, see photos of me from different phases of my journey, videos of me across different phases of my journey, and see that health does come in many shapes and sizes. And as long as you continue to try and show up for yourself, that really is the ultimate version of self-love right there, is showing up for yourself even when you're uncomfortable, even when what it looks like and feels like to show up for yourself isn't fun at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think what's funny is I'm still 20 pounds heavier than my leanest, and I am the most confident I have ever been. I really love my body fat now. I love that I have like shape now,
Yeah,
and I didn't have that before.
you
So,
have been absolutely, just like, I feel like the image of confidence lately. I've seen that shift in you a lot. What do you think has been the difference maker for you in developing that confidence through, through being in a bigger body?
I I got rid of the idea of trying to get back to that person, right? Because when I first started healing my hormones, I'm like, okay, I'm going to heal my hormones, and then I'm going to get back to that specific body. And it's like, no, we're going to evolve, and it's okay to get like lean again, but we don't have to strive for that body. We can strive for a new body that's going to also be healthy. And I also got rid of like all my old clothes because I think that was the hardest part going through the journey was I would constantly like I would still try on the clothes that used to fit me, and then I would get really discouraged like looking at myself in the mirror like, "Oh, I've gained so much weight." When the tables like or like a light switch went off when I finally started just buying clothes that fit me instead of trying to fit into those old clothes. And that's when I really started to gain confidence. I'm like, okay, I actually do like my body. I was just wasn't wearing clothes that fit me. And that required me going up. Like, I think I went up like three jean sizes. And I just had to get rid of like, it doesn't matter what size your jeans are anymore. Doesn't matter if you
100%.
wear an extra large, like it looks good on you.
Absolutely. And you are such a great example of that. Like you've been so open about these things throughout your journey and your social media. And I think everybody's been able to even see of like the body recomposition that you've had is absolutely worth noting of like we're talking about numbers on the scale, but I know you've compared photos where you were at the same weight compared to, how you are now, and you still look so much, honestly, you just look better because you've lost inflammation. You look leaner, you look like a different body, even though on the scale it still shows the same number and obviously gone up in sizes, but like that also happens when we add some muscle and we do have that recomposition effect that you ultimately are striving for too.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is the biggest compliment that I can get now like has nothing to do with my body, but I didn't even realize it. My boyfriend messaged me and he's like, "You just look so healthy."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yes.
that is like the best thing someone can say to me. Like, not you look skinny, you look toned, it's that you look healthy. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yes.
Yeah, no, it's easier to talk about this from the point that we're at now of like we kind
Mhm.
of we can say quote unquote we're on the other side. I know you and I both have things that we're still working on, but we're like at a point now where we both feel so much better in our bodies. We can look back and be like, "Ah, it was so worth it." But for those women who are currently going through it, maybe they're in the middle of it, maybe they have put on a little bit of weight while healing their hormones, and maybe they haven't like noticed such tremendous changes in how they feel yet. Maybe their energy still isn't great. They still have some brain fog. They're still, struggling with different things. I know, Abby, you've worked with some women through this kind of process. I'm curious of like what are your words of advice for those types of women?
Um, I mean, it's almost like, you know, one, just giving yourself some grace during that time. And I always kind of like to say, like, what is the alternative, right? We already feel terrible. We already don't feel good. Um, and so we can choose the path of kind of going through this harder journey of healing your hormones and really getting to this place of ultimate health, or we cannot, and then we'll just continue feeling like crap indefinitely. Um, and support, I think support is huge. And I think just voicing how you feel. I know like some clients in my check ins will be like, oh, I know I'm being annoying, but like this is how I'm really feeling if they're having a bad body image day. And I always tell them, like, one, you're never being annoying. Two, your feelings matter. And three, just getting them out there sometimes, just being able to tell someone that like you're really struggling and this is really hard. And just having someone there to support you and kind of just tell you like it's going to be okay. We're going to take this a day at a time, a week at a time. What can we focus on today? Um, I think really, really helps because it's a it's a tough journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, having a coach through this process is everything. It's
Hmm.
so hard to go through this on your own. Like, both of us are coaches, but yet we've still always had people in our corners through these processes
Hmm.
because it's not easy. It's not easy. Our
Yeah.
bodies, it's a sensitive thing. Society does make us think that we need to be a certain shape or size to have respect, to be liked, to have love, to be worthy. And we have to constantly battle that voice in our head that believes that to be true. So it's so important that we have these kinds of conversations and we share these types of things, like even like you were saying before, Abby, of, sizing up in clothing and having to remind yourself that that's okay. It's like going back to kind of the example I was sharing before, and this might sound extreme, but I think sometimes we have to get out of our own heads and think about it this way of like, we all have our own inner child within us. So think about like yourself, the way you're talking to yourself as if that was a child. And if you were talking to yourself and be like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be happy with you until you fit into these clothes again. Like I'm going to keep these clothes for you and you have to fit back into them. Otherwise, I'm just never going to love you. I'm never going to be happy with you. Imagine if you were saying that to a child of like, oh, you had to size up a few clothes. Like I'm not going to love you until you fit back into these other clothes. And I'm going to keep these clothes for you until you fit back into them, or else you're not going to have my love anymore. It sounds absurd and ridiculous, right? But that's essentially what we're doing to ourselves. And all of us have our own inner child within us who does need that love and reassurance from ourselves. We all need to remember that we are talking to ourselves, and your opinion of yourself is more important than anybody else's opinion of you. So when you're going through this journey, it is going to be hard, and there are going to be days where your self-esteem feels a little bit lower. And that's why having somebody else who truly does care about you, maybe is your coach, and maybe they truly, if you're lucky enough to work with one of our coaches, that they will do anything for you and they truly want the absolute best for you, and they're never going to guide you in the wrong direction. Even at times, if it feels like maybe this is uncomfortable, this is scary, I don't know about this, you put your full trust into your coach, I promise you with 150% assurance that you will end up in the best possible place for you, and you will be so happy when you get to the other side. So it really is about trusting that person and knowing that there's going to be that voice in your head that some days doesn't sound so good, and you have to just let that aside, and you have to go back to somebody else who can be that objective third party and can help you through it. Because regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on, maybe you're listening to this and you're not going through a hormone healing journey. Maybe you're just someone who needs to move more, not less. Maybe to improve your health, that's actually what's required of you. But if you know that you are practicing that level of self-love that allows you to do what's best for you. And the bigger the gap gets between what you know you should do and what you are doing, the harder the transformation is going to be if you let that gap keep getting wider and wider between being like, I know I should be doing this, but I'm still doing this because it's scary. So whether you are there because you resonate with what we're saying of like you're over exercising, you're under eating right now, and you're scared to let go of that, even though you have to in order to feel better and to have your energy back. If you keep pushing that off, like Abby was saying, and you ignore it, the gap is just going to get bigger and bigger, and you're going to find yourself at a point where it's going to be a harder transformation for you. You might have to gain even more weight to get back to that state of normal. Sometimes we have to overshoot that set point to be able to get back to that healthy place again.
And I have to say, as a coach, like there is no cooler feeling than getting back that second Dutch test for a client who went through and healed their hormones and like really trusted me and trusted Alex and trusted this process, to get that green light to finally be able to like start that process of losing body fat, because losing body fat just is not going to happen if you don't take the time to heal your hormones. It's going to prevent that from happening. And so I love getting those second reviews and seeing how things improve. So
it is the best feeling. That's why testing is important, because it does give you that external validation too of like, okay, maybe like sometimes you doubt yourself. You're like, is my energy improving? But like when you get the testing back, you're like, oh, yes, things are improving. I'm in a better spot. It's so rewarding. So
yeah.
Well, Abby, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing a bit about your story and sharing your insight. I know this is going to help a lot of those women out there who are struggling with this stuff. So ladies, if you listen to this and if you are going through your journey right now, or you are realizing that you're going to have to go through this journey, which may, doesn't necessarily happen to everybody, but it may involve a little bit of weight gain during that process, know that you're not alone. Know that we are here to help. You can reach out to myself or Abby anytime. We're happy to support you through it. But you are doing the right thing. And I promise you, your future self is going to be so grateful that you went through this process.
100%.
So that is all for us this week. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back next week.